Hey everybody, welcome back to the Shanty. Don't panic, the Shanty's not on fire. I'm burning incense today. I'm burning incense because I'm feeling like a hippie. And yes, I am that old that I use the term hippie. So listen, every once in a while, you see something on TV, or in this case, I saw it on a video replay, and you go, "What? Did that just happen?" No, I'm not talking about the Oscars last night. You'll know what I'm talking about when we talk about it. We're going to talk about interviewing today. Hiring and firing and interviewing today. Because, like I said, every once in a while I see something on TV and I go, "What? Did he really just ask that question?" And I want to make sure, I feel like I have an obligation to make sure that you know that just because a senator or a congressman or someone said or did something on TV doesn't mean you can do it too. So let's go to the fictional world of ABC Corporation. And ABC Corporation needs to hire a new senior lawyer, one of their top lawyers for their legal division. And when ABC Corporation does that, what they do is they have a lot of the people in their C-suite interview these candidates. So in this case, we have we'll call him the CFO. His name is Mr. Saltine. And Mr. Saltine is sitting down in front of this candidate for a lawyer job at ABC Corporation. And he's got the candidate, we'll call her Ms. Jackson. He's got the candidate's resume in front of her, and he's reading the resume, or in front of him, and he's reading the resume. And it gets to the bottom, and as some resumes do, although this resume is long and very, very impressive, Harvard Law School, Supreme Court clerk, blah, the whole ball of wax. But at the bottom, there's this little section called interests. And this particular candidate has listed a couple of interests, one of which is spending time with her family, and the other is volunteering at her church. So the candidate has expressed to the company that she enjoys volunteering at her church. So Mr. Saltine takes that as an invitation to ask about it. And Mr. Saltine doesn't just beat around the bush. What do you like to do at your church? He goes right for it. By the way, he asks, what church do you go to? What's your faith? What's your religion? Now, all of you good HR people, the hair on the back of your neck is standing up right now, and you're going, whoa, wait a minute, he can't ask that question. Why would he ask that question? And you're right, he can ask that question. But let's get into why for a minute. Here in Michigan, we have this thing called the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act. At the federal level, we have Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. But here in Michigan, we have the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act. And the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act says, the opportunity to obtain employment, housing, and other real estate, and the full and equal utilization of public accommodations, public service, and educational facilities without discrimination because of religion, which is first, by the way, race, color, national origin, age, sex, height, weight, familial status, or marital status as prohibited by this act, is recognized and declared to be a civil right. And then further down in Elliott-Larsen, when we actually have the employment provisions, it's actually section 202 of the act. Elliott-Larsen makes it a crime, not a crime. It's a violation of the statute for an employer to do any of the following. The statute actually says an employer shall not do any of the following: fail or refuse to hire or recruit, discharge, or otherwise discriminate against an individual with respect to employment, compensation, or a term or condition or privilege of employment because of religion, race, color, national origin, age, sex, height, weight, or marital status. So, you can't discriminate against somebody based, in this case, on their religion. Has Mr. Saltine discriminated against this candidate based on her religion by asking that question? Well, not yet. He hasn't, right? So is the question in and of itself inappropriate? Does it indicate a violation of the statute? And before we get into this too far, don't forget, the candidate put her interest in her religion on the resume. She put it there for the employer to see. So once she does that, does Mr. Saltine then have the authority, the permission, if you will, to follow up on that interest that she's placed on her resume, to go down that area of questioning, to ask about religion? We all know the answer to that. The answer is no. Well, why? Well, I just told you about the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act, but in addition to the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act, the Michigan Department of Civil Rights has published a little thing called the Michigan Pre-Employment Inquiry Guide. And the Michigan Pre-Employment Inquiry Guide gives you guidelines, if you will, for what questions are permissible and what questions are impermissible in either an interview or on a job application or in any of the application process. Things you can ask and things you can't ask. And the Pre-Employment Inquiry Guide is actually divided up into two columns. One is lawful pre-employment inquiries and one is unlawful pre-employment inquiries. Now, before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about the introduction to that Pre-Employment Inquiry Guide. The Pre-Employment Inquiry Guide introduction says the following: except as permitted by the Michigan Civil Rights Commission rules or by federal law, these statutes make it unlawful for an employer or an employment agency to ask questions, orally or in writing, that elicit information, try to elicit information, or express a preference on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, age, sex, height, weight, marital status, or disability of a prospective employee. So there you go. Now, where does that come from? It comes from reams and reams and reams of case law that says if you are asking questions that are designed to elicit information about a subject, a protected category that you have no right to know, that's improper. Now, the way a plaintiff's lawyer is going to use this is as follows. Mr. Saltine just asked that question about this particular candidate. He doesn't like her anyway. How do we know that? Watch television. He's going to vote no on hiring her. He's going to vote no. Now he's asked a question about her religion, and if I'm a plaintiff's lawyer, I'm going to take that question and I'm going to spin it into the reason you said no and that you don't like her is because of her religion. Why else would you have asked about it? Did you ask other candidates about their religion? Now, Mr. Saltine is going to say, wait a minute, time out. She brought it up, not me. Doesn't matter. If you're in an interview and you ask a perfectly innocuous question like, what do you like to do in your free time? And the candidate says, oh, I like to volunteer at my church. You don't get to follow that line of questioning to its next logical conclusion and ask about membership in things that you have no right to know. You can't go down that path. So what can you ask and what can't you ask? Well, what you can ask, there's a list of things. When we're talking about protected categories, there's a list of questions that you can ask here and a list of questions you can't ask. Now, this isn't all-inclusive. It's meant to be examples, and we use age as an example for this particular one. Is there a lawful pre-employment inquiry about somebody's age? And the answer is yes. You can ask somebody if they're 18 years of age or older. Because in many jobs, you have to be 18 to work in the job. In manufacturing, for example, heavy manufacturing, 18-year-olds, right? Not 16-year-olds working in a welding shop. What can't you ask? You can't ask the applicant's age or birthday. That's clear. But there are other things you can't ask. For example, the courts have held you can't ask a person when they graduated from high school. Have you ever noticed that on a job application? It's not there. Can't ask whether they've graduated from high school. Why? Because if I know when you graduated from high school, because almost everybody graduates around the same time, I know roughly how old you are within a couple of years of area. For example, if you know that I graduated from high school in 1978, yes, boys and girls, I am that old. You now know that I'm about 62 years old. Give or take. All right? What about religion? What are the lawful pre-employment inquiries for religion? Well, interestingly enough, there are none. Zero. On the list, there are no lawful pre-employment inquiries about religion. There's also none about gender, sex. There's also none about race or color. And a couple of other things in this list. All right? So, if you have non-HR people doing interviews, and I know you do, is you might want to consider going and printing a copy of this pre-employment inquiry guide and handing it to the people that are doing the interviews. It's right there. You can go on Google and type Michigan Pre-Employment Inquiry Guide in, and it'll pop right up and you can print a copy of it. Give it to the people that are conducting the interviews so they know what they can ask and what they can't ask. So that's all I got for you this week. See you in a fortnight.